To today's that was the recording in progress. So welcome everyone to today's coffee break on the Exposed project, where my colleague Charlotta Tiberg will talk about human exposure from lead and arsenic from contaminated soils, a project that is ongoing. Some technical instructions. We would like you to keep your microphone on mute, and you can turn off your video during the presentations. And if you have any questions, please use the chat and we'll try to answer them after the presentation. Yes, and it's we call it coffee break, even if it's almost lunchtime. And I will start to have a little short information about what SOILveR is. And my name is Yvonne Olsson, and I'm working at the Swedish Geotechnical Institute, and I am a member of the SOILveR network. So what is SOILveR? Well, SOILveR is a platform for knowledge development and knowledge exchange on soil and land management, and we are self-financed by the members. And what we try to do is that we try to work towards better management of soil by a lot of collaboration and exchange and knowledge building. We both have activities where we invite different kinds of experts and share information. And we also have actually membership exchanges with experts from our different countries. And there in these exchanges, we try to progress on the key issues that are shared interest between the members and member countries. We started in 2018, and we have had every year quite a lot of exchange activities. We started actually with a call. 3 research projects were funded in 2019, and already then these were really closely related to soil health and how we value soil as an asset. From there on, we have actually worked even more on the soil health issues, especially related to the new soil strategy and soil monitoring law. And we are, for the next year, having also a series of webinars on soil health. During these years, we have had a number of coffee breaks and seminars on different issues. And today we are dealing with something that concerns the blue text here, because we have had several activities on bioaccessibility and human exposure. And we have started a working group also on bioaccessibility and human exposure. And the Exposed project that is presented today is actually supported and facilitated by SOILveR. And we have a webpage where you can see the recordings of earlier coffee breaks and seminars. So you can find everything there, and you can also see the upcoming the dates for the upcoming webinars for next year's, and you're very welcome to join us there. And we also have a LinkedIn account, so you can follow us there. So I will now pass the word to Charlotta and the Exposed project.
Okay, thanks. I will share my presentation then. So is this good? Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I am happy to be here and tell you about the Exposed project. And what you see here in the first picture, it's part of the remains of Falun copper mine. So Falun is a small city in Sweden, and it's also a study site in Exposed. And as you see, it's a beautiful and quite idyllic place, but there is also a problem here with contamination from the old mine. So Yeah, the background to this project, we focus on lead and arsenic, and I think that you are aware about, or at least most of you are aware about the challenges related to risk assessment of lead and arsenic in contaminated soils, because these contaminants are common. They can come from different sources, but they are also naturally present in soil and the bedrock. And we are all exposed to these contaminants from different sources, not only contaminated soil, and the main source is usually the diet. And in Sweden, when we calculate risk-based guideline values, these values end up being below the natural background for arsenic and lead. And this is not only a Swedish problem, it's in several countries that we have this. So these guideline values, they are then very difficult to apply because, I mean, almost everything gets like a risk then. And therefore we now use some kind of policy-based values instead of these risk-based values. Yeah, so how can we do? What can we do? How can we assess and manage risks with lead and arsenic in contaminated soil? That is the question. And this is the Exposed Project Group. It's me then, Charlotta from the Swedish Geotechnical Institute, SGI, and also have Yvonne and Matilda from SGI. And we have Linda, Mario, and Martin from AMM, or Occupational and Environmental Medicine in Uppsala, Sweden. And we have Jacques Petit from ISEP in Belgium, and Aurélie Pelfren from Tunia in France. And the project is financed by a grant from the Swedish EPA research grant. So the focus or aims of Exposed, it is to expand and improve the toolbox that we can use to assess and manage risks associated with lead, arsenic, and to some extent cadmium in contaminated soils. And we work then within a Swedish context, but it's of course relevant also for other countries. So we want to better understand the contribution of contaminated soil to exposure, to the risk that we face. And we want to learn from experiences in other countries and see if there are possibilities for harmonization between countries. And the project outline, yeah, as you have understood by now, we focus on arsenic and lead in soils and human health risks. And we want to combine scientific work with workshops. So we have 3 scientific work packages. It's work package 2 about exposure to soil. And here we have Falun as a case study where we measure contaminants in blood and urine. And then we have work package 3, which is about risk assessment methods and models, human health risk assessment. And then we have work package 4 about oral bioaccessibility, how to include that in risk assessment. And of course, these work packages are very closely interrelated, so there is a lot of exchange between them. And then we have 4 workshops planned, and they are both about gathering knowledge from and practices from other countries and other projects, but also to discuss how to synthesize the results from the scientific work packages and how we can use them in policy, and about if there is possibilities for harmonization and what is the best practice to do things. And of course also to disseminate results from the project. And we have the possibility here to use data and experiences from a previous project or a project that is soon ending, that is called Biomat. And the Biomat project, it ran from 2022 and it will be finished early 2025. And the leader for this project, it is environmental and occupational environmental medicine in Uppsala, which is, they are also part of the Exposed project, and also SGI is part of the Biomat project. So in Falun, the mine is not active anymore, but it was active for 1,000 years, we think, and it has caused a large-scale contamination then in the area. So people are living in areas or very close to areas with high metal concentrations. And there is a risk assessment that was performed in the 1990s, and it resulted in site-specific or Falun-specific guideline values, and also local advice regarding gardening and picking of mushrooms and berries in the woods around Falun. But I mean, this was a while ago, so there is a need for new investigations to provide a basis for a new or updated risk assessment. So soil and mine waste has been sampled. There are samples from 7 forest areas and 3 types of mine waste. And we also, so these have been then analyzed for the total metal concentrations. And there has also been performed oral bioaccessibility tests, both with the classical UBM test, the ISO standard that mimics what happens in the body if you ingest small soil particles. But we also have tested a simplified test, bioaccessibility test, on 125 samples. And then there has been a questionnaire to residents in Falun about habits and knowledge about the local advice. Mushrooms and berries have been sampled from 5 of the forest areas. And yeah, of course, risk communication is very important throughout this project as we are working close to the citizens. So there is quite a lot of data that can be a basis for the Exposed project. So yeah, these are the sampled areas. You see the mine here. The mining area is marked here with orange, and then the green areas is forest areas that has been sampled, and the yellow areas here, it is where mine waste has been sampled. And these, yeah, there are these ISO lines. They are based on the old investigations from the 90s, but according to these investigations, you can expect lead to be around 700 or above, even in this within this red area, and 300 milligrams per kilo within this purple area. So there are more than 400 soil and mine waste samples that has been analyzed from these areas. And the questionnaire, it was about the living environment, profession, habits. For example, if you spend a lot of time in these forest areas, about diet, and about risk awareness. And we also included a question about interest to participate in follow-up studies. And so this questionnaire, it was sent to 9,564 randomly selected people. And of these, 3,973 responded, which is a response rate of 42%, which is very good. And then of the respondents, 2,350 said that they were interested to participate in some kind of follow-up study. So that is 60% of the respondents. So there is a lot of interest in Falun in these issues. So we are very satisfied with this response rate. And some answers regarding risk awareness. There was a question: are you aware that slag in the heaps in Falun contain high metal concentrations? And 82% answered that they are aware of this, while 18% said that they did not know this. And then there was a question about if people are aware about the local advice regarding gardening and picking mushrooms and berries. And then about half of the respondents knew about this, but half did not. And of these that knew about the advice, about 72% say that they follow the advice, more or less, and 26% say that they follow the advice partly, and only 2% do not follow the advice. So you can see here that, I mean, if people know about the advice, they do follow them, but there is clearly an issue with communication here to maintain the awareness about this advice, that it exists. So then Biomet is part of the basis of the Exposed project, and Exposed started this year, and it will run until 2027. So the main activities that we have performed so far, it's the sampling of blood and urine in work package 2, and we also performed the first workshop with what we call a policy advisory group, and it was about current practices and experiences in different European countries. So the blood and urine sampling was performed on at 2 occasions. So first, we wanted to establish what we call a baseline. What are the levels in the Falun population today? So we measured lead and cadmium in blood and arsenic in urine. And people are then, of course, exposed from different sources. And the main source is usually the diet, as I said. But yeah, then we also have soil and drinking water, air and dust. And then the second sampling, between the first and the second sampling, people were asked to follow some dietary advice and make diary about what they ate, food diary. So we hope that the dietary advice, it aimed to decrease then the exposure for lead and arsenic. So we hope that by decreasing the exposure via diet, it is easier to see the exposure from the other exposure routes. And yeah, during the summer, we recruited then participants for the sampling, and that was based on the questionnaire from Biomet. So if you remember, we had one question about the interest to participate in follow-up studies. And also during the summer, we developed dietary advice and diaries. And then the first sampling was performed in October, and then 300 people were sampled. And yeah, this was based on they were recruited from the 2,000 people that said that they were interested in follow-up studies in the questionnaire. And there was some inclusion criteria. For example, you should not be a smoker, you should not be exposed to lead or arsenic in your work, and you should still live in Falun. So that was for the baseline. And then 100 of these people were asked to follow dietary advice and keep a food diary for about a month or more. So in November and continuing now in December, there is a second sampling performed. And now I think that, I mean, it's almost finished. About more than 90 of the 100 participants have been sampled. And so far, only one of them have not followed the dietary advice and kept the food diary. So most of them have, and I think this is, I mean, it's quite a commitment to do this for more than a month. So we're very happy that people followed through. And I should give some credit here to Linda and Mario at AMM that managed to motivate people to really do this. So what is left now, it's the analysis, data treatment, writing, and so on. But we're very happy with the sampling so far. And the other thing that we did this year, it was a workshop about current practices and experience in Europe. So we formed a policy advisory group with participants from France, Belgium, Netherlands, United Kingdom, and Sweden. And we're very grateful to the policy advisory group for their engagement in the project. And we met then online on the 8th of November, and we discussed around 3 themes that are then closely related to the different work packages. It was exposure and biomonitoring, human health risk assessment, and bioaccessibility. And before the workshop, there was a questionnaire distributed, and we asked for a response from each participating country. So at the workshop, we had compiled the results from the questionnaires and presented that as a basis for the discussion. And from the workshop, there will be a document or a short report, kind of state of a practice light, that will be a deliverable that will be published. But it's not published yet. Yes, and this is an example of a compilation of the questionnaire, very condensed summary of responses from the different countries regarding exposure and biomonitoring. So then we asked if biomonitoring is used in human health risk assessment of contaminated soils. And Netherlands, Wallonia, and Flanders, they all answered that yes, it is used in some cases, but not often. And in France, it seems to be used a little bit more frequently. There are even advice that if levels are above a certain concentration in soil, then you should perform biomonitoring. In UK, on the other hand, they do not use biomonitoring in human health risk assessment so far. And in Sweden, we do, but it's rarely, like in some special cases, it has been used. And then we also asked how is this triggered or initiated if it is used. And it is mentioned, biomonitoring is then mentioned in some methodologies or guidelines. And there is also ongoing work to produce advice or guidance regarding how to perform biomonitoring related to contaminated sites. So we had very interesting discussions at the workshop and gained a lot of valuable info for the project. And what we will do now in 2025, 2026, of course, we will continue then with work package 2, the data from the measurements in blood and urine. But then we will also work with work package 3, risk assessment, test methods for human health risk assessment of lead and arsenic, and try to assess the contribution from soil. And the 4th work package, where we will try to develop an operational framework on how to include oral bioaccessibility in risk assessment of contaminated soils. And this, I mean, it's performed in a Swedish context, but it's based on the experience from several countries. And the pictures here to the right, it's from Falun. It's one, the upper one is from, yeah, like an area where there is, yeah, some football goals and also skating ramps very close to the mine heaps with high concentrations of lead. And there is a fence, maybe you see it at the picture, like dividing the mine heaps, but it's still quite accessible. And the below is from a forest area. Yes, and then we will also have these other workshops a little bit later in the project when we have more results. We have one about synthesis of scientific results, and then another one where we want to discuss how we can use the results from the projects in policy, and if there are best practices and possibilities for harmonization. So in this workshop, the policy advisory group will also be active. And then we have dissemination. It's probably not one workshop, but a few seminars or webinars arranged, for example, via the SOILveR network and the Swedish Clean Soil network. So, yeah, if you're interested in results from the Exposed project, you could send me an email, and then we'll let you know when we publish something or plan to present something somewhere, so you can follow the project. And with that, I thank you for your attention. I will, of course, answer your questions, and I think there are also several other members from the project here today that can help me to answer.
Thank you, Charlotta. And we actually have no questions in the chat, but I'm sure that maybe the questions from the audience anyway, and you can feel free to just ask them. You don't have to write them in the chat now. I'd just like to comment on the last picture that you have. One of the challenges in this town or cities is that the waste from the mine is actually protected by law as a cultural heritage, which makes it very interesting and challenging to investigate and also to suggest measures.
Yes. Yeah, so I mean, it's a whole area with a nice museum, and you can go down in the mine and everything, a lot of buildings that are preserved from the mining time. So it's yeah, it's really also a cultural heritage here.
Yes. What do you think, Charlotta, about do people worry about the metals, or are they used to?
Yeah, I think it's very different. I mean, it seems at least that they are really interested in knowing more about this. And I don't know if maybe Linda, you had more contact more directly with the people here if you have some comment on this, on if people are worried. I mean, of course, some are worried, some maybe just say that, yeah, we lived here all our lives. There's nothing, not a problem with me and so on, but.
Yeah, I agree with I don't have that much to add. Like you said, it varies how much people know and how much they worry about the contaminants. But from the questionnaire, we've also seen that the awareness is very different between people, and we've also seen that about 60% of those that answered have a higher university degree. And I think that during the sampling, we got a lot of questions and people were very interested. Of course, those are the people that choose to be part of the follow-up as well.
Mm.
And I think this, the quite high degree of people that has a university degree also, affect the interest.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, and you can maybe expect that the people that did not answer the questionnaire are also maybe a larger percentage of them are not aware of the contamination and of the advice, maybe.
Mm.
So it's always like a bias in these type of questionnaires, but
Yes.
still it provides a lot of interesting information.
We have a question from Marie.
Mhm.
Maybe would you, Marie Cheia, would you like to put your question yourself?
Yes, hello. I'm Marie from SPAC, and I have a question about the bioaccessibility because you are going to measure the bioaccessibility on the mining soil. And we know that is quite different of the bioaccessibility for arsenic, for example. It is not mining soil. So do you think that you are going to take into account for the risk assessment different values depending if you are on a mining soil or not? It is in the project or not?
Yeah, this is something that we discuss. I mean, we have already results from the bioaccessibility tests, and we see that the bioaccessibility is, at least for both for lead and arsenic, but maybe especially for lead, because the lead levels are much higher, that it is considerably lower in the mining waste, the bioaccessibility. But I mean, on the other hand, if you look at the bioaccessible concentration, it's still very high because we have so high concentrations. So I mean, the percentage that is bioaccessible is much lower, but still the concentration is not that low. So yeah, it might not really affect the risk assessment that much. The bioaccessibility, we think it is like a risk regardless. Was that answer to your question? Yeah. And exactly how we can then include bioaccessibility in the risk assessment, that is something we will work with during this year and next year.
I was wondering about the people that were sampled, blood samples. Will they get any feedback? And is that do they get to know what lead levels they have in their blood?
I have to pass that on to Linda. Yeah.
Yes, do you want me to answer?
Yes,
so,
thanks.
they were all asked if they want to know their levels. So that's the first thing. And most of them, almost everyone, wanted to know their levels. So after the sampling now, the second sampling, we will have a lot of work to do to first go through the data. So the first thing that we will do is to just do a quick look to see if anyone have high levels or any levels that are attributed to risk. And then those people will, of course, get their answers first. Even those that said that they don't want to know their levels, they are informed that if we find high levels in you, you will still get your results. And then we will not only provide just a number for these people, we will also try to find some other reference values in the Swedish population to so that they have something to compare the levels with, and also a reasoning about risk and so with the exposure.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, Linda, was it a lot of people that said that they did not want to know, or
No, just a few,
if
maybe
you, okay.
a handful or something.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, because it feels a little bit strange that if you if you do the sampling then and not want to know the results, it's a bit counterintuitive to me. But
Yes, I agree. But
Mm.
I think just my personal opinion or experience from talking to these few people is that they were scared to know their
Mhm.
results. And some of them also were just not interested. They
Mm.
they said that it's important to me to participate in research, but I'm not interested or worried about the results.
Mhm.
Mm.
Mm.
Yvonne, you're muted. Could you please unmute?
Thank you. Yes, I have an additional question if no one else has something right now. I was thinking about these diets that I should follow. Would have you kind of estimated what decrease in, for example, lead levels you would expect? Is there anything that you can go on to estimate that, or will it be a surprise?
It's not anything that we have done so far, and I think it's very complicated, difficult question. We've only included like the food categories that we know can contain high metal levels, and then we've informed the people that they try to decrease those food categories. And we also want them to increase some vitamins, because for example, the increase of vitamin C and calcium will kind of block the uptake of lead into the body. Not answer to your question, but
Interesting. Yes.
Mm.
Okay. Well, then now let's see. We have a question from Cecile. When will you get the results? Do you plan to represent the results for geographic analysis in order to see the influence of the distance from the polluted site?
the short answer is yes. We will do a geographic analysis because we have, of course, the address to all the participants, and we will do an analysis of the influence of the distance from the mine. And we also have the levels in the soil, of course. The results, we have the results already for the soil, the bioaccessibility, and the berries and mushrooms, like Lotta said, but for the blood and urine samples, we have not received any results yet from the lab. So in the project, we have said that we will present this during next year. There was a question before as well, Lotta.
Yeah. Question.
Berlin.
I think that was more
Okay.
comment.
Okay.
The comment that there is a feedback and a link to a French report on the influence factors for oral bioaccessibility in soils. And thank you very much for that contribution. We also had a comment by Frank, I think. Oh, I can't see it. Yes, there. Frank, thanks for the presentation, and was just commenting that France is dreaming of such a study in combining environmental and health studies in order to improve the management of these sites. And maybe related to that, since I know that France has a trigger to do health studies when, for example, lead or arsenic values are above certain levels. And I think that will also in time contribute, I guess, to the knowledge about the relation between contamination in soil and the contamination in human beings. Lead is mainly a problem for young children in view of areas with over 700 ppm lead. Are the contamination measures also taken? Maybe Rolf, maybe you could ask your questions. I'm not sure.
I think I understand. Or do you want to answer, Lotta?
Yes.
You can start.
So I think the question is if there are any decontamination measures that are taken in Falun right now or planning for. And this could be a very long answer because it's complicated. Like Yvonne and Lotta said before, we have the cultural interest and that the areas are protected. So it's difficult to do anything, at least with a short notice. And so many people, the municipality and the Länsstyrelse, what's that called in English?
Administrative board.
Are the ones that are responsible for the mitigation and the strategies for decontamination. And in our project, this is not included. So we only perform and we will present these results, and then they have to go forward. The advice that exists now for Falun, the local advice that Lotta talked about, so the recommendations for the populations are there to decrease exposure risk. So they have these very high levels, but then they have this recommendation and the high levels are kind of justified in a way. Maybe you can explain it in a better way. Or add something.
Yeah, I think one thing, I mean, within the project, when we identified high levels at a certain area, then there was this decision to fence this area, for example. So they're like temporary, so far there were like temporary measures taken, but and also historically, I mean, there have been some remediation or in Falun related to the spreading of contaminants mainly. But I mean, based on the data that is provided in these projects, there may be more measures taken.
Yeah, so the remediation before has been focusing a lot of environmental issues and the leaking to surrounding waters. So not any health focus, not so much.
Okay, so I think we're running out of time. So Lotta, I would like, well, we have maybe one question. Let's see. Just final remarks to that. It was thank you for the presentation. So I will also like to thank you, Charlotta, and also Linda for the presentation today, and then for everyone for participating today. And hope to see you next year at our webinars or coffee breaks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.